Alright, so this is just a quick video where I'm going to share with you a final redesign of the Harbin Repairs adapter PCBs for the Haswell Optiplex motherboard. So that's the Optiplex 7020, Optiplex 9020, and Precision T1700. And what these adapter PCBs allow you to do is install any of these Dell motherboards in a standard micro-ATX case. This is a really nice option if you're just trying to build a useful but inexpensive PC. So the original Harbin Repairs PCBs, they're great, they work really well, however they don't fit in some cases, so I've had two cases where one of the two adapter PCBs doesn't fit, either it bumps up against the power supply or the bottom of the case. So my version 0.1 redesign of the Harbin Repairs PCBs, they basically worked okay, and they did fit pretty much any case because they don't hang off the side of the motherboard, which was the issue with the originals. However, there were a couple of somewhat minor issues, but still something that was worth fixing in each one. The 20-pin adapter bumped up against the capacitor on the motherboard, so that wasn't really great to be putting mechanical stress on that capacitor. The 5-pin power switch adapter, basically I put the connectors too close to each other and one of them bumped up against the shroud of a header on the motherboard that it plugs into. So I wanted to address both of these issues. So in the version 0.2 versions that I'm going to show you in this video, I think it's possible that there are no remaining issues and they will work in all micro-ATX cases and not have the issues that the version 0.1 designs had. Alright, so let me walk you through the construction of them and then we'll see if they work. I'll also mention really quickly that just like the original Harbin Repairs adapter PCBs, my revised versions are completely open source and you can check the GitHub repository that is linked in the video description for the design files and some information about how to get them fabricated. Alright, so obviously to get started you're going to need the PCBs themselves. So these I had fabricated at OshPark, and OshPark makes it really easy to create PCBs if you're using KiCad, because basically all you have to do is upload the KiCad PCB files and they can fabricate these directly from them. So this is the 20-pin adapter PCB that has the hard drive LED and front panel audio and USB 2. This is the 5-pin power switch and power LED and diagnostic LED adapter, so you need both of these if you are going to install one of these motherboards in a standard micro-ATX case. Alright, so next let's look at how to actually assemble these by soldering the connectors and other components onto them. Alright, so here are the parts we're going to need for the 20-pin front panel adapter. So we need a 2x10 2mm female header, so that's this thing. This is the part that actually plugs into the PCB, so let me see if I can give you a better look at that. So, yep, we just need to solder that onto the underside of the adapter PCB. Here is a 0805 resistor. This is the current limiting resistor for the hard drive LED. The exact value isn't super critical. The schematics call for 470 ohms. This is 442 ohms. It's just the closest equivalent that I had. Then there are two 2x5 2.4mm male headers that are used for the front panel audio and front panel USB 2. You'll notice each of them has a particular header pin that is removed, so these are keyed. And you can see here there's a marking where a pin is removed on the front panel audio connector, and there's also a missing pin on the USB 2 connector. That's basically so that they are guaranteed to be plugged in the correct orientation. Those will be mounted on the top side of the adapter PCB. Then finally there's just a 1x2 2.54mm male pin header for the hard drive LED. That's this thing that will also go on the top of the PCB. Alright, so let's assemble this thing, so we'll do some soldering. Alright, so I'm going to start by soldering on the current limiting resistor onto the bottom of the PCB. So it is the smallest component that's closest to the board, so it makes sense to put it on before we put on the larger components. Alright, so let me see if I can find that little thing. Here it is. Okay, that should do. Alright, so the next step is I'm going to solder on the 2x10 female 2mm connector onto the bottom here. So the standard approach for this type of pin header kind of connector is to solder the pins in the corners and then heat up the joints and then press from the other side, and that way we can ensure that the connector lies flat against the PCB. Alright, so let me put a little bit of solder in each corner. Alright, now I just need to touch it from the other side to make sure that it is lying flat, and I think it actually is pretty good. Alright, so yeah, that looks pretty flush against the bottom of the PCB. Alright, so now I just need to solder the other joints here. Alright, I think that looks pretty good as far as I can tell. Okay, so now we just need to do the connectors on the top, the USB 2 front panel audio and hard drive LED, and clean it up a little bit, then I think it's ready to test. Alright, so off camera I soldered on the male pin headers for front panel audio USB 2 and the hard drive LED, so I think it all looks pretty good. So I think we are ready to test this using the test bench. Alright, so here's the other adapter PCB. This one adapts the power switch, power LED, and diagnostic LED from the 5-pin 2mm header on the motherboard that connects to this 2x3 2mm female header that adapts that to the standard 2.5mm male headers that are normally used for the power switch and power LED and diagnostic LED. So this is going to be pretty straightforward. The 2mm header goes on the bottom. The 2.54mm header goes on the top, so I'll solder that off camera and then show you the result. Alright, here's our adapter PCB all soldered. Looks okay, so I think this is also ready to test on the test bench. Okay, so I'm starting to set up the test bench, and I have the 20-pin adapter in place here, and I'm very pleased with the clearance around this capacitor now. Lots of clearance. It definitely clears the header for the thermal sensor, and it fits pretty snugly. In fact, I think it's actually better than it was, because now these two connectors for front panel audio and front panel USB 2 are now kind of balanced on either side. So yeah, this seems really good. I'm quite pleased with how that looks. Alright, and here's the test fit of the other adapter for the front panel power switch, power LED, and diagnostic LED. That also fits quite nicely in place. It definitely solves the problem with the previous revision, which is that the two connectors were too close to each other, and so the bottoms of the pins for the 2.5mm header touched and basically bumped up against the shroud of the 2mm header on the motherboard. So they are nicely separated now. That looks good. So, okay, so they fit well. They seem to have resolved the mechanical problems with the previous versions, but now the big question is, do they work? So let's put a CPU and memory in here and boot it up and see if it works. Alright, I think everything's connected, so I think we can try booting up. Alright, so the fan test seems to have worked. Let's try hitting the power button. Alright, so now we just wait to see if it's going to boot. I think we're in business. Alright, looks like it works. Okay, so next step is I'm going to test the front panel USB and front panel audio. If both of those work, then I think we can declare these new revisions to be a complete success. Alright, I did a quick check of the front panel audio and the front panel USB 2. Both of them seem to be working perfectly, so I think I am going to declare victory. These two adapter PCBs seem to be completely functional. They resolve the problems we had with the previous revisions, and going forward, I think these will be the ones that I will use, so that's great. So in conclusion, if you have these adapter PCBs, you can take an Optiplex motherboard, some standard PC parts, a standard micro-ATX case, and have yourself a really inexpensive and useful PC, so this is definitely my favorite approach. And these new versions, the version 0.2 versions of these adapters that I show in this video, should work well in any standard case. I've got pretty high confidence that these will work pretty much regardless of what case you put them in, so definitely gives you some good flexibility. Okay, that's it, and I will see you in the next video.